unwavering adherence to decisions once he'd reached them, indifference to superficial honors, hard work, persistence, listening to anyone who can contribute to the public good, his dogged determination to treat people as they deserved. And that is a quote from Marcus Aurelius from the book Meditations on Marcus's virtues of a mentor. Throughout the series, we've heard from leaders in and across varied fields that athletic trainers have reached into. We have constantly heard of the importance of listening to others, and in some instances, leadership through mentorship. Joining us today on the Sports Medicine broadcast is a gentleman who has served as an athletic trainer, educator, PIAA, Whip Hill, NATA member, a committee member, and chair for close to 4 decades, Mr. Larry Cooper. Morning, Larry.
Good morning, Jeremy and John.
And good morning, Jeremy. How you doing?
Good. What's up, y'all? Welcome to the Sports Medicine broadcast. It's a pleasure to have you back here, John. Larry, speaking with you again. Larry has also been on episode 392 and 478, which hasn't been released yet. So both of those we're talking about Atlas Project when we were live at the NATA events. What's happening here? All right, and so I got distracted. I'm trying something new. Instead of streaming Facebook Live from my phone facing the computer, I've got something going on, but it mimics one screen. And so when I clicked over to one thing, it did that infinite loop thing, where you're looking into like 2 mirrors at a time. Mm-hmm. Has nothing to do with what we're talking about. So this is sportsmedicinebroadcast.com/leadership Cooper. Again, for Larry Cooper. So it's sportsmedicinebroadcast.com/leadership Cooper. All right. So take it away, John.
All right. So I wanted to start this podcast, and I wanted to invite somebody on that can talk a little bit about mentorship, and somebody who has gone through a full career and talk about the importance of leadership. I wanted to share a quick short story. Larry and I have only met once before, and I'm not sure if Larry remembers this. In 2006, probably 2005, I was a graduate assistant at California University of Pennsylvania, and I sat through a wrestling assessors program, southwestern corner of Pennsylvania. And I remember meeting Larry, and I just thought, this is a guy, if I stick around the area, I want to have as a mentor. He just had that look and the feel and the way he communicated to the whole class. Is definitely a person that I've always looked up to. And then obviously learning more about Larry throughout the career and throughout my career and his career, it's somebody that has been at the same high school for a long time, who has influenced others. And Larry, you can talk about that in a little bit. I felt that this is somebody, if I wasn't going to be close to, I wanted to have as a remote mentor. And whether he knew it or not, whether we know it or not, I've said this before, you want to be the author of somebody's life. And Larry has been one of those authors for me. And I'm really happy to have you on the podcast today to talk a little about your career and the importance of leadership and some of those experiences you've had.
Well, thank you, John. And certainly, I've taught that class numerous times, and I've met so many amazing people, and I don't remember specifically you, but honestly, I've kept in touch with so many different people from those courses because I do have a vested interest in the people that I touch. There's a reason why they come into your life, and there's a reason why some of them stay in, and you want to help them out. So,
yeah, like I said, I'm really happy to have you on today, and you've had a very long career, and I want you to touch on that, and then we'll talk a little bit about the importance of leadership and how your career has changed and how it's had to adapt to affect those things.
Well, certainly, first let me say thank you for inviting me on to this. This is exciting. This is something new, and I appreciate the opportunity. But I started off in Arlington, Virginia. I was the first certified athletic trainer in Arlington County. I don't know if you know anything about it, but it's the largest, most densely populated county in the United States. It's the smallest in the United States as well. It's only 5 square miles. And so I had a really good opportunity. I went down there and I was able to start a athletic training program. I actually developed the model for teaching and athletic training, the curriculum, and I had a great mentor from the very get-go. The person who hired me, his name was John Youngblood, and he was very involved with the NFHS, and he really encouraged me to give back. And I've had to reflect a little bit after I got your questions, and he really was the start of it. He was the push um, in the athletic training profession. And then I had a mentor as a teacher that was probably one of the best human being, the best man I've ever been around. His name is Bruce Keith, just a phenomenal human, and really treated people with compassion and respect no matter what. And when you have those types of people that, really influence you early on in your career, it has a lasting impression. I stayed down there for 8 years, moved back to Western Pennsylvania, where my roots are from, and started as the head athletic trainer at East Suburban Sports Medicine Center. We had 6 schools, and I was the head athletic trainer, and I did hiring and scheduling and things like that. And my school was Penn Trafford. And I really didn't like getting out of the teaching aspect of education, so I went back to Penn Trafford as a teacher and athletic trainer, and I was there for 27 years. Just a phenomenal community, gave me a lot of opportunities to develop a program the way I saw fit. They always encouraged me to push the envelope a little bit, to push and really have student safety as at the forefront. But I gotta kind of rewind here a little bit. We have people that are mentors when we're early in our life, and I had 3 people that really influenced me a lot, and that's my mom and my dad, and then my wrestling coach, Mo Hijazi. He just a tremendous man, and I'm still learning from him. So I still call him coach. It's still one of those things that there's an utmost, a very high level of respect for him. And, of course, my parents, fortunately, they're still here, and I get to see them probably about once a week, but they still influence me in my daily life, whether it be athletic training or as a parent or as a husband or a brother or whatever. So that's just a snapshot of my career, just fortunately, I've only been in 2 different places.
That's awesome that you're able to stay at certain areas for such a short amount of time, or for such a long amount of time, and to help kind of build programs and build things through mentorship and just your influence as an athletic trainer. You touched on your coach, somebody as a mentor for you. What are some of the experiences that you had with your coach that left us such a lasting impression on you that you've been able to use in your practice?
Well, there's 2 things that stand out. This was back in the middle of the Iranian hostage crisis back in the 70s, and he was from Iran, and he was getting a lot of, I would say, hate mail and very derogatory things being said to him, but he always kept a positive attitude. He was always upbeat. He didn't let things get him down. He always said that they don't understand. This is a country they're talking about. They're not talking about me. So it made him kind of compartmentalize things to his benefit and to the people around his benefit. So I was very impressed with that, because as you know, maybe you've heard that during that time there was a lot of very bad sentiments against anybody from Iran because of that. So it was impressive to see him do that on a daily basis. The second thing is he wrestled with me every day, and he didn't let up on me, because he knew that I wouldn't become better if he took it easy on me. So he pummeled me But before I graduated, I was beating them. And, those things that taught me that don't give up, to keep trying, perseverance, dedication. And if you keep your nose to the grindstone, you can get what you want. You can achieve anything you want to do.
And how did those two attributes translate over into your practice as an athletic trainer throughout your career? Obviously, you couldn't beat up anybody during the season.
Well, I think that, we all hit roadblocks, whether we're trying to develop an EAP or establish a new program within your school. And you shouldn't get discouraged. You shouldn't just stop the first roadblock you get. I always see a roadblock and I don't stop. I think of how I'm going to get around it. So I think the perseverance and the dedication, which can be both a blessing and a curse. I just asked my wife. It helps you achieve what's best for your student athletes or best for your school community or best for your program. And that's really helped me, because there's times where I could have very easily given up and taken the easy way out, but it would not have been the best thing for my students or my athletes.
Now, you talked about you established new programs, and how important was it to take the lead and to be the person to push through the things that you felt were best for those programs and those schools?
Well, I guess I have the opportunity now to reflect back and look and see what happened. So, things always look better there when you reflect back, 2020 vision. But I think it was important because no one else was willing to do that. Somebody had to do it because it was the right thing to do. It was for example, let's talk about the weight assessment class that you attended. John Moyer and I stuck our necks out in the state of Pennsylvania to better the sport of wrestling and to establish that PIAA weight assessment training for all athletic trainers. We were hated by the wrestling community. However, if you fast forward 11 and 12 years, we have more development in the state. We have more wrestlers. The sport has become, Pennsylvania is the melting pot of wrestling throughout the country. I don't for a second think that we had anything to do with that, but I think we had something to do with the growth and the increased level of interest, because now you took away all the unsafe weight loss practices out of the picture. And now they can concentrate on becoming a better wrestler and not just solely on making weight, which when I wrestled, we were getting better, but our main focus every single day was making weight. So I think, the reason I guess I did that, because I saw the big picture. I didn't want to see the sport go away. I didn't want to see it continually being bashed for those unsafe weight loss practices. And I felt like we owed it to the young people of our communities to have the sport stay around. I learned so much from that sport.
When did that program start in Pennsylvania?
2006, 2007.
Wow. Yeah, so that's something that's I'm not sure. Is it nationwide now that they do wrestler assessments?
It is.
Okay.
Yep.
So I know going through that class, and it was a new class then. Coming back to Michigan and starting to work in high school a couple years later, they had started to implement it, and it was really nice to have that kind of background from being in Pennsylvania. Obviously, being in Pennsylvania for wrestling and then coming back to Michigan, you get that bigger picture and you understand why. So I thank you. I like you said, you were hated by the wrestling community. I remember hearing grumblings from our coach, and when I came back to Michigan to hear it a little bit, but then they already knew the understand. They kind of had the why as to what they were trying to accomplish there. And I mean, it wasn't too long ago when I was in high school, and I wrestled, and it was, I probably was over 200 pounds trying to wrestle at 171. Like not healthy. But you talked about the importance of stepping back and looking at the bigger picture. Just for wrestling. Has that been something that you've been able to do with your career as well, in trying to view a bigger picture as to what you're doing and how you go about things?
Absolutely. I think that one of the things that we as athletic trainers, if you want to make a difference, you have to take a global approach. You can't just look at your situation, your community, your school, because if you do that, you don't see everything that's going on around. So yeah, you have to take a global picture, and I think you can make better decisions. Sometimes, informed decisions that are going to be long lasting rather than short lived.
Is that something that you learned throughout your career as well, or is that something that you kind of had to have beat into a little bit?
No, I think I learned throughout my career because my parents really I think taught me common sense and the ability to look at the big picture, and we're just a small portion of what's going on throughout the world,
Right.
and we need to understand that the universe doesn't revolve around us, that we are in the universe, and we better look at everything.
Yeah. What are any other experiences that you had that have helped develop your leadership style?
You sent me those questions, and I was thinking about this, and I said this to my wife. I don't necessarily consider myself a leader. I consider myself a person with passion, a person is with to others, and formulate ideas and I just programs or new concepts out of those listening. And I guess if you take a look, I guess I have been, I've had leadership positions, but when I went into those positions, I didn't consider myself a leader. I considered myself a person of passion and a person that wanted to make a difference, leave things better than the way I found them.
Mhm.
And I think if you do that, you certainly can have a influence on people around you. Passion. I definitely have a passion. That's probably kept me going, throughout my career, and it has allowed me to make a difference, whether it be here in Pennsylvania or in Western Pennsylvania or in the country with the Secondary School Athletic Trainers Committee.
What are some of those experiences that you're still using in your post-retirement life, or in your retirement life? I guess you're not post-retirement, but in your retirement life.
It's interesting because I am probably as busy now as I was before, but in a different way. I'm going to give you a snapshot of this week. It's Wednesday, it's Thursday. Monday, I was at Gannon University, and I spoke on the secondary school value model and the weight certification program. And then I went up. It was at close to Presque Isle, so I went for a workout, drove home, had a conference call about athletic training. Tuesday, I had 4 conference calls about athletic training. Yesterday, I had 2, and we're working on what's called appropriate medical care for secondary school age athletes. And the paper's been accepted by the NATA board of directors, but now we're working on an online tool, and which is really kind of a self-assessment. It's called PASS, Program Assessment for Safety in Sports. And that's never been done before. It's something totally new that the NATA has given me the go-ahead to do, and it's been an unbelievable journey. And then we have this today. And then after this, I have a call with Tim Neal. Do you know Tim? He's up in Michigan.
I do not know.
He's he's the chair of the ethics committee. And then I have to, by on Friday, I have a deadline for Training and Conditioning Magazine blog. So, I'm doing things with athletic training. I'm just not in a classroom, or I'm not in the athletic training room like a traditional secondary school athletic trainer. Crazy busy. It's good though. Next week, I'm going out to Tucson, Arizona, speaking at a high school. And then, are you familiar with Bart Peterson? Bart,
John, you still there?
John, you still there?
Hello, hello. All right, Larry, you can hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Sure.
All right, so I don't know what's going on with John, but yeah, I mean, obviously I've had Tim Neal on here twice, Bart Peterson on here. So I know those guys, but
Bart and I are running a half marathon out there, and like I said, I'm speaking at his high school, and so I'm staying busy. It's not like I'm sitting around doing nothing. I'm still involved with athletic training, but behind the scenes, a little bit, maybe a little bit more. There's John. You back?
no, it still looks like he's frozen there. Yeah, and I don't know what's going on. My camera is acting all sorts of weird too. John, can you hear us? Sorry, he'll message me in just a second. So go ahead.
That's okay. So one of the questions he had me is, what bad experiences or bad leadership styles have you been a part of that have shaped you? And it's interesting. We all know people that you would say are bad leaders or have a bad leadership style. And I just tried to learn from those. I've not been a yeller, not been a someone who demands things. You try and talk to people and explain what you're trying to do, and if they really buy in, if they really understand, they'll do things, and they'll complement what you're trying to achieve. I did have a coach I dealt with once, and I'm not going to mention his name, but he was a very successful Canadian Football League and USFL coach. But at the high school level, he was over. He never won a game. And it was because he couldn't relate to the kids. He could relate to the older athletes, the collegiate level and the professional level, but certainly was not able to relate. And I think I learned from that. You have to be able to relate to the people that you're talking to and you're dealing with, and that you want to help maybe raise the bar for. You have to be able to relate to them. Simple as that. I see you, John, but I'm not hearing you.
John? Hello, hello.
So he had another question for me, is and I don't know if I'm getting ahead, just so we can continue here. Is he asked me, what do I have a definition of leadership or leader? And one of the things I'm talking about at Bart Peterson's second sports medicine class at a secondary school is qualities of a leader. And what I wrote down.
Check.
There you are.
There we go.
So I wrote down probably about almost 20 things. And if I can just read those real quick, it's pretty interesting. They have to have character, which I think is first and foremost. Integrity, charisma, commitment, communication, competence, courage, discernment, focus, generosity, initiative, a listener, passion, a positive attitude, problem-solving abilities, the ability to create relationships, responsible, self-disciplined, servanthood, teachability, and vision. So when you sent this to me, it kind of made me think there's really no one word or one definition of, at least for me, because there's so many pieces to the puzzle, or so many ingredients to go into, being a effective, efficient leader.
Yeah, I know that's a difficult question to ask, and just to have one, I don't think anybody has really narrowed it down to one, or if they have, I don't know if they've been an honest person, or if you've ever given that question and the answer right away. It's a difficult one to wrap your head around, because there are so many things that go into play into being a leader and to having the importance of a leadership position. You can't just have one attribute. And I think you hit one of them, which was, you talked about positive attitude, but also listening and being one that formulates ideas. And but so many other little things go into it, is incredibly important. I dropped out for a minute from the call, so I didn't hear one of the question before that you covered.
And that was about the bad experience or bad
Okay.
leadership style. And I was saying that I won't mention the coach's name, but he was a coached in the USFL, coached in the Canadian Football League, and he coached at the high school. And he never won a game at the high school. He just couldn't relate.
Interesting.
He just could not. The only word I can say is relate to those young kids and express what he needed done. So I felt that, I learned from that. You have to be able to adapt your teaching to the people that you are, who's your audience. And if you don't do that, I'm certainly going to speak to an athletic trainer differently than I'm going to speak to a parent, or different than an administrator. And you have to be able to, change that up and be able to adjust that for whatever the situation might be.
Yeah, it's even important within athletic training too. You have to talk to everybody a little bit differently. You can use different words, different ways to communicate to people. I mean, it's really all over the place. I think we talked about this last week too, is in the importance of changing the way you communicate and how you talk to people. It's incredibly important, because if you can't build a relationship, you're not going to have that person on your team. And when you need to get things done, and we need to maybe change policy, maybe change something up, or maybe work towards a different goal, if you've lost that connection with the person, you're not going to get much done, really.
Oh, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. As far as leadership, I think two of them you talked about, be able to listen and be able to, change your level of conversation. But I think the integrity and character are so critical, because there's a lot of things that we do, there's no one around that would second guess us or understand what we're doing. So you have to do the right thing when no one's watching. So again, integrity and character, I think, are two very critical components.
I was listening to another podcast, and they were discussing the Maryland incident and kind of the loss of character and the loss of integrity. The school had claimed moral responsibility in those things, where they took ownership and they knew something went wrong. And the reason things go wrong or things happen, and this is something I said in a podcast a while ago, was whenever I've failed as a person, it's because my character has faltered. And where I haven't had the best character at that moment, or my integrity has wavered. And having those things, it's incredibly difficult. It's something that you have to work on every single day. And I'm not saying that I'm perfect. And I said this, a while back, is I've made 1,000 different terrible mistakes. For everyone, my ratio's kept pretty good on that. I'm 1,000 to 1 when it comes to it. But the more I work at it, the more we work at it as a whole, the better your character is, the more moral your moral compass is easier to direct and navigate, and you don't have to make changes when it comes to those difficult situations as a leader, as an athletic trainer, as somebody we're constantly having to make difficult decisions. And the better our character is, the easier it is to make those hard decisions.
Oh, absolutely. A leopard doesn't change its spots. So if you are continually doing the right thing, you're going to continue to do the right thing. But if you're always doing bad things, it's going to be hard for you to all of a sudden turn on the light switch and change your integrity level or your character level. So I agree with that 100%. Absolutely.
Yeah, and the more you do it too, the more you do those right things, those difficult decision-making things, the more people tend to rely on you. And then when you do have to make an incredibly difficult decision, like I just said, the Maryland incident, if you have to make a decision where there's a lot going on, if you continuously made those right decisions, and you have to make something, people are going to rely on you, and they're going to trust that whatever you say is the right thing to go forward.
And it becomes second nature.
Mhm.
You make those right decisions. It becomes that second nature. You don't even think about it.
Yeah, and that goes back to looking at the bigger picture of things, right? If you understand the bigger picture, you're going to make those decisions to better that, or to go towards that goal, whatever that big picture is.
Yes, absolutely.
So like I said, I dropped out for a little bit on the call. Did you touch on what your description is as you as a leader? You said that, right?
Well, I think that, I think I've been a good listener. I've always tried to listen to people's ideas and why, if they can explain why. But I also feel that if you show compassion to people and you show that you care, that they can sense that. They can, read between the lines, or see right through that facade if you're really that way. And I've tried to be that way. I mean, that's blessing or a curse. That's just the way I am.
What are some of the habits that you keep that allow you to continuously be a leader?
I try and stay at the forefront of what's going on. I've always tried to adapt and never get stuck with the way things have always been. I think those are I think it's the 8 worst words you can say. That's the way we've always done it. Whether it be technology or new developments in concussion management or ACL rehabilitation, whatever the case may be, I've always tried to stay up on new developments and new procedures, and be able to integrate those into my practice. I had 2 coworkers that were not. One was significantly younger. One was with me for 16 years, and I think we all brought something different to the table. And we always shared information and why we thought that this was important, so that you can adapt and change and make your practice better.
We talked about adapting in a podcast earlier, and the importance of it within our profession. How important it is to always continually adapt and to be aware of the changes around us, so that we can be successful as athletic trainers. Is that something that you've always felt you've been able to do, or is that something that you had to learn early in your career?
Well, I think when we're younger, we learn to adapt much faster, much easier. And I think that towards the middle, you start to become set in your ways. At least this is what I found. And then towards the end of my career to school, I think I did a better job. So I think it's there's no straight line. It's not a trajectory that you're always going up. I think it changes all the time. And I would like to think that when I was early on, when I was young, first as an athletic trainer, that I was much more flexible and adaptable in that. And then, for whatever reason, life gets in the way, kids, stress, different things, you become set in your ways a little bit. And then as you get older, you realize, maybe I'm not doing it the best way. Maybe I'm not adapting to the new policies and procedures or rehabilitation programs or diagnostic tools or whatever. So you learn to adapt again. So I would say, I think that's what I did. I'm not proud of the fact that for a while I was stuck in my ways, but yeah, you do that.
It's funny because when I look back, through my young career right now, I knew the importance of adapting, yet I resisted it. I think I was my ego is too big. I'll raise my hand. My early career, I had my ego was very defensive, and I didn't want to adapt to change, and I wanted things to adapt to me, and I wanted to be, the reason you changed was because of me, and not the other way around. And it's funny because I think I've always known that you have to adapt. And I think just being around athletics, you kind of understand that, but to have that ego kind of melt away. Maybe that's something that, as a wrestler yourself, you can't have an ego, because once your ego gets a little bit bigger, somebody's going to change it for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too that it takes a while. That old saying, it doesn't matter what you know until you show you care.
Mhm.
And once you do that, then you can realize that the ego is out of the picture completely. That they know you as a human being, they know you as a caring person, they know you as being someone who's reliable and dependable to be there all the time. So yeah, that ego goes away. Oh, that's great. Yeah, I understand completely what you're saying.
Yeah, it's funny. One of the things I constantly say is that going through this series, we're hearing a lot of the same things. You quoted something that was quoted a week ago, earlier in the week. I'm sorry. It's been a long week here too. So, if the more people know how much you care, the more they're going to listen to you, and the more they're going to work with you and work for you and need be. This is the question, and I think that people who are leaders, or people who have had long careers and successful careers, or people who are leaders, they tend to have successful careers. And I wanted to ask you what your definition of success is.
Well, I think that if you can leave things better than the way you found it, then you've been successful. Whether it be your individual program, whether it be your school, whether it be your community, whether it be your district, your NATA district, your state, whatever the case may be. Whatever you started, whatever you found, as long as it's better when you're done, that's success.
Being in different leadership positions through your career, is that something you've always wanted to get into, or is that something that you've fallen into? And somebody that wants to be in a leadership position, whether it's in their district or their state, what are your suggestions for them?
It's interesting. When I started out, and I think this has to go back to some of the mentors I had when I was at the University of Pittsburgh. Kip Smith and Dave Perrin, both NATA Hall of Famers, were my mentors and my supervising athletic trainers. I go down to Northern Virginia, and Jay Irgang, who is a doctor of physical therapy at University of Pittsburgh now, world-renowned researcher, John Almquist, and some others that I worked with. And then I come back to Pennsylvania, and some of the same people that were very influential to me earlier were there again. And I got involved because someone asked me to. I've stayed involved because I wanted to. I've gotten way more out of athletic training than I've ever put into it, in relationships and knowledge and experience and travel, all these different things. So I started off as someone, I guess, saw something in me that I didn't see in myself, and I've stayed involved since then because I enjoy trying to make a positive difference in our profession.
And it's important that the thing that you said was stay involved because you want to, not just stay involved just because somebody's asked you to. If you're forcing yourself to do something, you're not going to get a good return on it. And we get involved in certain things, and sometimes you ask yourself, why am I still involved in this? Can't send out another email. I cannot read another email from so and so. But if you have a why and why you're still involved, it makes it a little bit easier to continue with the work that needs to be done.
Yes.
You talked about the importance of finding a mentor and having the right mentor. You said you were lucky throughout your career to have people that were there for you and to be a mentor. Somebody that's looking for a mentor, what is something that they should look for when going out and asking for one?
Well, it's interesting you say that, because I'm part of a mentor program that I actually started about 10 years ago in Pennsylvania. And due to my commitments at the national level, kind of stepped back slightly, and now I'm back into it. But I think it's someone who is willing to share, someone who is open and honest with you. You don't want someone who's gonna just say what you want to hear, or just be there a few times. You want to develop a relationship with that mentor, so that you truly get to know that person, not just in the athletic training side of it, but also in a personal side. And that way there's an ownership, a vested interest in both people's part. So I think you need to find someone who's honest and open, and is willing to be there.
That's one of those important things too, is having somebody that's honest and open. If you have somebody that's going to always sugarcoat something, and if you're looking for a mentor that's going to do that, what good is that going to really do for you?
Right.
So it's easy, right? But you don't always want easy, because the easier things are, the less you're going to get out of those things.
Sometimes the best thing to do is not the easiest thing to do.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, you said you're involved back in that mentorship program. What are the other things that you're involved in right now that keep you busy in retirement life?
Well, I'm the District 2 secretary. So I'm obviously very closely involved in our district. I'm the chair for this appropriate medical care for secondary school age athletes. I'm on the secondary school committee has a AT Advocate Award. I'm on the selection committee for that. And I'm still on a couple committees with the secondary school athletic trainers. Got a phone call yesterday from Nancy Burke, NATA Hall of Famer.
Mm-hmm.
She's starting to work on the value model for fire and police, for that segment of our membership. And she asked me if I would be involved with that, because I had previous experience with the secondary school value model. I have 10 presentations coming up between January and May on the appropriate medical care at each NATA district. So I'll be doing some traveling and presentations there. And I continue to do a blog for the Training and Conditioning magazine. It's a monthly blog, which has been it started off, it's actually difficult, but now I look forward to. I really like it. It's writing. If I have to write for a paper or a consensus statement, or whatever, I can do that. But I never really wrote, for people to read, for people to read, a very short segment. And I've actually, I think I've improved my vocabulary. I've improved my ability to relate to people. So it's been good.
And that's a big thing too, is as you go forward as a leader, you have to, continuously learn and change things. And if you do things, like you said, like you've always done them, you're not going to be successful. You said you do a blog for training conditioning. Are you on the cover of every magazine?
No. Are you looking right here?
I'm looking right back.
No. But yeah, certainly I'm staying busy. You missed it. You were off when I said I was going out to Tucson next week.
Mm-hmm.
I'm speaking at Palo Verde High School, and then attending a University of Arizona football game. A good friend of mine is the head athletic trainer, Randy Cohen.
Mm-hmm.
And then Bart and I are running a half marathon at Joshua Tree National Park on Saturday. Mm-hmm. And then I'll fly back. But these are all things that you're doing with athletic trainers that you've created friendships with over the course of your career. And I wouldn't trade it for anything. Earlier in September, I went out to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I had heard there's great things about the Jenks Union rivalry. It's one of the top 10 rivalries in the country. They've had as many as 41,000 people at their football game.
Wow.
And so I went out and I spent 5 days with Dan Newman and Mike Catterson, the athletic trainers at Union and Jenks. met their staff, met their football coaches, attended practices, got a taste of the Tulsa life, spoke at Oklahoma State University, at Tulsa University, at Jenks High School, and just what a great experience. So, I've been able to do some fun things too, since retiring. It's not all work. We're having some fun too.
Sounds like it's more fun than anything else to be in that position. And I really thank you for being on today. I've closed every one of these podcasts with a closing gratitude, and I want to provide you with that option, or that to thank somebody, or thank something that you've found has helped your career.
I think everybody has helped me, because everyone that you come in contact with has the ability to change the way you think and the way you approach your job. And I've had the opportunity to meet so many amazing people that just happen to be athletic trainers too, that have influenced me way more than they know. Certainly people that I've worked with, on position statements or work forces or task forces or whatever, but really people that come up to you and talk to you after a presentation and give you their card, and you talk back and forth. Those people really have an influence on your leadership or your job. And I want to thank everyone.
Great. Jeremy, would you like to add?
Talking about my gratitude, or
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
My father-in-law is Mike Nairn, and so he's the pastor of our church, so he leads there, but he also sets an example for family. My parents are divorced, and I don't want that to happen to my family. And so, as you're talking about, like a mentor, somebody that you can develop a relationship with, you can be close to, someone that's honest, that is open, and those kind of things. I've really built that relationship with my father-in-law, Mike, and he's been available to help with whether it's building a table, or picking up the kids, or when our dog died, we were out of town, he went and picked the dog up and took it to the wherever it is you take the dogs when they die. And he's been an important part, a valuable part of our lives, but he's built that relationship and invested in the relationship with me. So it's not just him staying involved because it's his daughter, but because he sees value in me, and I can look towards him as a mentor, as how to be a godly man, how to be a father or a husband, how to be a father, involved and put those things first. And those things are the most important to me. And so looking towards him, I can see those types of things. And so, Mike, thanks for everything. Thanks for the relationship, for mentoring, for leading, and for being available.
And I wanted to thank Tom Ford, who was my mentor, my first job into my career when I came back to Michigan. He used to be the head athletic trainer out at Oakland University. He recently wrote that he didn't get into it for the money. He got into it to influence other people, and that was something that he never said to me when we first started. He just acted, and he just showed that through his actions. And as I got through my career, and as I'm going through it, I've noticed the importance of needing to influence other people rather than doing it for something else, that monetary or materialistic. The more I am able to influence people, the more I'm able to, whether it's athletic trainers, whether it's our student athletes, I've found more reward in it, and a more fulfilling life. So my mentor, the person I wanted to thank, is Tom Ford. And I greatly appreciate that he is in my life right now. Jeremy, do you have anything that you want to add before we close out?
No, like I said, I've spoke with Larry before, and I'm sure coming up at the next NATA event, we're going to speak again. He's been involved with the Atlas Project, talking about Rob Huggins, and they're really getting some traction. So if you have not completed the Atlas Project, wherever you are as an athletic trainer, this is a great reminder. They're doing some really cool things. They want to help us grow, but we have to have the information. So as Larry was talking about the value model, that's how we get that that information. If we have, well, we now know that 37% of high schools are covered. That means, or something like that. I don't know. What is it? What is it, Larry?
It's I think it's 37% do not have coverage.
Okay, so 37% do not have any sort of athletic trainer care at all, and so those things, we didn't know that before. Now we know where we can focus, or what the salaries are, or the hours, or the what's acceptable or not acceptable, those kind of things. And so it's just another avenue for the greater body to help in the smaller spots. So again, the Atlas project there, Larry has been a great leader there and great participant. Again, if you want to reach out to him, I'll have his email and stuff in the show notes, which would be sportsmedicinebroadcast.com/leadership Cooper. Larry, is there a better way for people to get hold of you?
No, the email is a great way, and certainly I appreciate the opportunity not only to talk here, but also, like you said, to get out the Atlas information and some of the other things we've done. I really appreciate this opportunity.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. I'm like I said, I was really excited to get you onto the program and a part of this series on leadership.
Thank you.
All right, so sportsmedicinebroadcast.com/leadership Cooper. Again, sportsmedicinebroadcast.com/leadership Cooper. As Larry Cooper talks about leading into retirement as athletic trainers. Coming up, we're going to be discussing the book Dichotomy of Leadership, which is the follow-up to Extreme Ownership from Jocko and Leif. It's kind of been the bookends for this series, and it's really cool experience. So check us out there. And then also we're going to be doing the makeup with Brandy Curry, as we had some technical issues. So if you caught the first Facebook Live or whatever it was, and you saw those errors, then that's all right. That's part of leadership, is being adaptable, flexible, willing to admit your mistakes, own those mistakes, and just go on from there. So it's really cool to see all this stuff, to hear it all, to come back and over and over again, hear it. And so again, John, great job in organizing the guests. Larry, thanks for joining us. So for John, Jeremy, Sports Medicine Broadcast, what did I say? John, Larry, me, Jeremy, host of Sports Medicine Broadcast. That is a wrap.
All right.